time for Newsletter Chat, where Jen and Jamie chat about newsletters. Newsletter Chat with Jamie and Jen.
And Tina.
That's so fun. It's so nice to see Jen smiling in the promo picture. I miss her and her smiley face.
Yeah, me too.
I do like hanging out with you too, Tina. Why don't you introduce yourself to anyone who might have stumbled across us here?
Tina. My pen name is Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fiction.
I am Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols, and we are two hosts of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, and we are having newsletter chat. Oh, and Rhonda's in the chat. She likes and Tina at the end of newsletter chat with Jamie and Jen and Tina. We'll have to dub that in there on the end. So, hi, Rhonda, and hi to anybody who's watching who happens to come across this later. We appreciate you. You are the reason that we do this. What is this? This is Newsletter Chat. We are both new at the newsletter game, and this is kind of accountability for us, isn't it, Tina?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure is.
We show up here, and we're also here to help you. So if you are starting a newsletter or are just stuck for ideas of what to put in your newsletter, the ideal is that we are here to help inspire and support and encourage you in that endeavor. So Rhonda and anybody else who's listening, we would love for you to put your comments or questions in the chat so we can help you with your newsletter. Tina, what's up with your newsletter? First, a recap of like where you're at with your publication journey. Like tell everybody who you are and stuff, because this might be the first time they're seeing Newsletter Chat.
Okay, well, like I said, Christina Catane and I just finished a novel. It's called Lost in the Land. Yay! Lost in the Land of the Midnight Sun. And it's, like I said, it's Christian dystopian. And so I'm right now, my whole game plan kind of thing with my newsletter is to get newsletter subscribers and to get people to download a free copy of my book and leave me reviews.
Okay, and why are you doing that?
Because reviews are worth more than gold to a new author. I would rather have a review than the cost of somebody purchasing my book.
Because it adds legitimacy to what you're doing, right?
Right, because when somebody's going on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, I've gone wide, so I'm on Kobo, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble. I actually Googled myself, and I'm in a bookstore in Japan.
Wow.
I'm in a bookstore in France, and
hey, ears off. Bad Leroy Brown has joined us.
Oh no.
Yes, for those of you who are new to the show, Tina has a neighbor with a shortwave radio, and Tina, you'll have to mute when I'm talking because it's kind of a weird thing there. But he jumps on there sometimes when she has her headphones plugged in the evenings. I'm just glad we caught it before we had to censor him. He sometimes gets a little colorful with his language. So sorry, Tina, what were you saying?
I Googled myself, and I was in a bookstore in France, Russia, and Japan.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then somebody in Australia has my book on sale on eBay for what amounts to $18 US. It's like 24 or 26 Australian dollars.
Wow.
They have about 5 copies. There was a whole mess up where my booklet my paperback accidentally went live for 12 hours. So I guess they bought it during that time period. But I don't know where I was going with all that. But I'm trying to give it away in exchange for reviews so that when people go on these platforms to see if they want to buy my book, there's reviews there of other people that have read the book. And it'll just push them a little closer to hitting that button, that purchase button.
Yes, and more important, or even this, yes, and that all is really awesome. But you'll have lots of people to market your next book to, right, Tina? Uh-oh, you're muted. because I told you to mute when I was talking. You're probably going to go crazy muting.
Probably going to have to remind me every time. So the next time the book comes out, I'm going to have all these names on my email list of the people that got free books the first time. And I'll know that they're already my readers.
Yes.
And they're already interested. I already have people asking me when book 2 is going to be here. So,
and that's the magic of mailing lists, right? You have a whole cultivated list of hot leads, they call it in the sales game. These are people who already like what you write. They're members of your newsletter. They join to get your free, they're calling it a reader magnet, right, Tina? It
right.
like attracts readers to your brand or your author's way of doing things. Anything special in your newsletter you wanted to highlight this week, or you want to talk about your open rates, or what do you want to talk about from last week's edition, and what are you putting in next week's?
Okay, first I'm going to answer Rhonda's question. You can get the paperback at my book launch party on the 14th.
Yay! It's going to be so awesome.
On November 14th.
Yes. Check out on Facebook. You have an event posted, don't you, Tina?
Yes, I do. Christina Catane. And if you buy the book before the end of my launch party, you get your name in a drawing to win a free 2021 Christian Planner from ChristianPlanner.com. They're really nice. I've been using one myself for a year, and I love it. And then I'm going to have other prizes that I'm not going to tell you about till the day of. So.
Oh, Rhonda wants an early one. Sorry, Rhonda. Tina is hounding the presses and praying it up to get them there on time as it is, because how long did you say? This is something that people might want to know, Tina, who are thinking about publication. They want to plan their book launch party. How much time would you say to plan between when you press order and when they should book their book launch party? What would you say?
Because of COVID, they said to add 2 to 3 weeks to the normal shipping time. So normal shipping time is they have to print your books first. So if you're printing 5 books, it's not going to take as long as if you're printing 100 books. So that time period is variable based on how many books you're asking them to print for you. And then they have to ship them, which normally takes a week to 10 days. So then they're saying expect to add 2 to 3 weeks on top of that because of COVID and because of the shipping and all that stuff that's going on. So I just ordered my books on October 23rd, and I'm praying they'll be here before November 14th.
Wow. Well,
right now I would say 2 months in advance.
Yeah, we're going to have to come up with our own little timeline. I know that people who do fancy publishing formulas and stuff like that, they have their own sort of book launch timeline. But I almost sort of feel like it would be nice to just have maybe a static page on our website, or maybe one of our freebies that we give when you sign up for the Christian Indie Writers podcast newsletter would be to have one of those, a cheat sheet of that information. Oh, Rhonda says, thanks, COVID. Yeah, lousy. Oh, you're muted again.
There's other people that have said, my sister-in-law sent me a check already. So when my box of books comes, I can mail her a book.
Yeah, you've gotten lots of good responses.
I don't know. It might be even later than the 14th.
I know. You guys all need to tune in on Friday. We're going to talk a little bit more about Tina's success with her actual book. But Tina, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your open rates, because I know you were pretty impressed, and any strategies that you have to pass along to others.
Well, I really don't know why I have such, I've only put out 3 newsletters. So it's, so far, 2 of them have done really well, and one of them was kind of average, I think. So the first one, I sent it out on a Saturday at 1 p.m. And my title was You're Invited, with an exclamation point, because I was inviting them to join my ARC team, my advanced reader team, and to get an advanced reader copy in order to leave me a review. So 70% of those who received an email opened it. And it was within 48 hours that 70% opened it.
Nice.
It really shocked me. I don't know if it was my title. I don't know if it was because there were people who were anticipating my book
Mm-hmm.
and that have been looking for my emails. The next email I didn't send out on a Saturday. I was kind of waiting for my interior to be done so that I could have the link for them to get their book in the newsletter. And I
Mm-hmm.
sent that out on a Wednesday at 1:00, and I only had a 30% open rate.
Mm.
Which I hear that a 30% open rate is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's nothing. That's a good open rate. Most people would say that.
Okay.
So then this last one that I sent out this Saturday, by Sunday night, 68 people had opened it out of 100.
Really nice.
So I did that thing where they said, "Do you want to send it out to the people who didn't open it like 24 hours later?" And that's what I did. So between the two of those, there was 100 people on my list. I have 101 people on my list right now, and 68 opened that email. And there were several. I think I got 8 clicks total.
Now tell me about the whole procedure of participating in group promotions for you, because it seemed to me like you weren't even really sure what was that confusing or frustrating for you? Because when I was asking you questions, it seemed like, oh, do you see my little doggie over there? She's snuggling in the chair. Sorry. So anyway, do you have anything to add about those group promotions, how they went for you or anything?
Well, I've done one, and it was a swap of a reader magnet. So he put my reader magnet in his newsletter, and I put mine in his and mine. And so he got 3 clicks from me, I believe, and I got 0 from him. And then the next one is like a group promotion. It's called, I forget what it's called.
It's called It Ain't Christian, but It's Clean, or something like that.
It Ain't Gospel.
It Ain't Gospel, but It's Christian.
I think is what it is. Hey,
It's
Stephanie.
fun. Yeah, Stephanie says, hey, Mocha. She knows my little puppy's name is Mocha. Yeah, she's over
here. I
here.
was wondering who she was talking to.
Yeah. Hi, Steph. Stephanie, you have read my book, and I understand Tina's is on your to-do list. I don't know if Stephanie is thinking of starting. And hi, Jamie and Tina, too. Yes. I don't know if Stephanie's thinking about writing. Stephanie is a history buff. I bet you she'd write some really great creative nonfiction, like about her ancestors. Like if she ever started doing the stuff that like Rhonda does with genealogy, I bet it would be really good because Stephanie's really into history. Like I know Stephanie personally, so that's how I know this. But anyway, yeah, good to see you in newsletter chat, Steph. Rhonda or Tina, so what do you have anything else to talk about your this week, or do you want to talk about what's coming up for your next issue?
Well, the next issue, I'm gonna thank some of the people who gave me reviews and put some of those in my newsletter. I'm going to talk about Lake Iliamna and the Lake Clark National Park area of Alaska, where my book is set. And then I'm going to have another little section from the Bible about how it something from the Old Testament, either the Law of Moses or the Tabernacle, that you'll be able to see in my book, and what the symbolism is, and how it points to, because everything in the Tabernacle and the Law and the everything in the Old Testament points to Jesus Christ in some way. And so there's a lot of that in my book, but I don't bore my reader by stopping to explain it all. But I have been explaining it in my newsletter.
Yeah, so you can get a little bit of the historical background of some of the choices that Tina made. And where do they get your newsletter? ChristinaCatane.com?
ChristinaCatane.com.
Yes, Tina is interested in making the newsletter interesting for her readers, not just a vehicle to sell books. So there's content, articles, and information in there. You should check it out, especially if you're into Alaska history or both, or just great books. All right, well, why don't I get everybody kind of caught up with comments? I am a newbie, way newer than Tina. I am just starting building my newsletter subscription list. So I have 100 subscribers is a goal for me. So Tina, way to go, way to be. Now, toward that end, I too have participated in some group promos. What I think is interesting about this, Tina, I didn't talk to you about discussing this ahead of time, but I ended up having to send out what I'm calling an extra edition of my newsletter because I committed to being in a group promo and then found out that you can't uncommit to being in a group promo. Once you tell them that you are going to commit and be in this group promo, you're in this group promo. So it was interesting because when I originally set up to do my newsletter, I was only going to promote clean reads to my audience. And guess what I had agreed to participate in? Now, fortunately, it wasn't like Naughty Nanette's shape-shifting triple X extravaganza that I had, obviously, because Tina, you're muted.
Yeah, I was just commenting. I just said that's a relief.
Yeah, right? Like, I might have had a clue that one might be risky when I saw the banner. But what it was I thought I had put the filter in there to where I would only get the clean promos, but I must not have. So I committed to be in this mature protagonist because my mom in my story, she's like our age, you know what I mean? Like over 30 or whatever. So she qualified. But so then I noticed that some of the covers very clearly depicted adult content in these books. Not all of them, but it was at a glance, you're getting hanky-panky in these books. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I had decided by accident that I'm promoting secular material in my newsletter. I'm like, okay, so how do I handle it? So I talked to my husband about it, and we put headlines to explain to people whether they were going to be, I don't know, my husband is flagging me like he's got something to tell me. I don't know what's going on. This is very strange. But anyway, so I have now dividers. I have, here are my clean offerings and here are my general audience offerings with a warning, if you click, you might see mature content. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And I have that going on 2 times. Tina, you're still muted. I know in the future I can be more careful about selecting that clean filter, but it's just interesting because we never talked about how to handle promoting if you are not exclusively promoting to a Christian audience. Tina's still muted and she's talking to nobody.
Anyway, Cindy says that she thinks you can email the organizer and ask them to remove you.
Well, I handled it the way I decided to handle it.
So that's an option if you need it.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, the lesson here is, I chased around and had to erase so many things that I released that had a promo in it or a typo in it. We talked about that, right, Tina?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you just have to forge ahead.
Right.
Just all of this stuff that just goes crazy, right?
Right. Like I've had to decide whether or not I'm going to go change every little, like I put an I instead of A in a word in my book, and one of my readers told me about it. There's an incident where I talk about the ship captain being from Russia in the east, but Russia's actually west of Alaska.
Oh.
So I have to decide, am I going to go in there for every little thing somebody finds and change it? Or what do I do? But so if you listen to the experts, the professional writers, I guess, or experienced, I guess would be the word. They say if you go back and change every mistake you find in your first book, you'll never move on. And they say just when it's done and out there, just forget it and move on. And just leave all that in there. So I guess I have to decide whether I'm going to change that kind of stuff now or if I'm just going to move on.
I've decided my personal philosophy on that is going to be only to change things that people draw to my attention. If I notice it in an already published volume, but nobody else has told me that that's an error, then I figure the reader's eye is not seeing it, because I have plenty of people who are reading on my behalf that would tell me. But I have been, like, I have a new edition of my book that is a giveaway, and that's updating because I found a typo as I was doing the audio recording. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I was like, well, I am going to fix it just because I'm in here anyway, fiddling around with the interior. So Who's that? Is that Rhonda saying she's heard just the opposite?
I'm assuming it's Rhonda.
Yes.
Although
Now,
suddenly she's Christian Indie Writers Podcast instead
I
of.
think that's so funny how none of us can figure out like how to be whatever pseudonym skin or whatever it is. Cindy
I like
says
Cindy's advice. She says, save up the comments until you get something big, and then when you have to change something, you can find. I'm having trouble reading it. Let me see. Right. So when I find something, I can't just leave it. Then go in and change all the rest of the little stuff that I don't know if it's worth it. That's basically what she's saying.
It's Jen! Jen is in the chat! Yay, she stayed up late for newsletter chat. She loves us. Yay! Well, she says anyway that she thinks that's one of the perks of self-publishing is that you can go in and change anything that you find. And this is true. If you're doing the traditional route or through a publishing house of some kind, you might have to wait around for them to decide to fix it, or they might tell you they don't think it's worth fixing, and you might have a different opinion of that. So it is really great for you to retain that level of control.
Mm-hmm. And I get to decide whether to do it or not. The thing with Ingram Spark is, which is who I used, if you have orders that haven't been printed yet, they won't change it until all those orders are out the door. And so your book could be pending for several weeks.
Wow.
Changes could be pending for several weeks, depending on how many orders you have that they haven't gotten out the door yet. So, but the digital one, the ebooks are easy to just upload a new file.
Well, I apologize personally for not catching that, although any regular listener to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast will know I have never professed to be a whiz at geography. So I will excuse myself from catching that particular error. I will say that
I've personally been in the car with you and you've gotten lost. So.
I get lost in a campground. It's ridiculous. I have to get out the GPS.
You missed your own exit to your house where you were driving.
We would be driving home from like an activity we've been going to for years, and my husband would be like, well, Mom's going to Lansing, because I just keep going straight when they all got off, on the highway. And then my middle daughter would cry, Mom's leaving. She would not know my husband was kidding, but anyway.
Well, how many times did I read it? I'm sorry?
I squirreled us. Where were we about that?
I don't know. I was just saying I read it several times myself, and like Russia is in the East, right? Like that's just where it is. Like I think of it as being in the East, and it didn't even dawn on me that when you're in Alaska, Russia is actually 3 miles to the west, right, in Alaska. So, yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
The takeaway is it's up to you to make those changes or not. And we had talked about how perfection is the enemy of done.
Right.
And I know, I had a deadline to send out my newsletter because I had accidentally participated in promos. But the good news is it gave me a deadline to meet, right? Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't spend any more time wondering or thinking or changing or tweaking. I just had to do it. And when you're your own boss and you are the one responsible for those deadlines, sometimes it's difficult to discipline yourself to be like, I have to finish by whatever day, come what may, and then I'm going to have to call it good enough. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Are you chuckling what Stephanie said?
Yes, I am.
She said if you look the other direction, that would be the easiest. Just kidding.
That would be in the East. Yeah, it would.
Oh, Lindsay.
In my newsletters, no matter how many times I went over and over and over them before I hit send, I found typos later in all of them. And so I'm just going to have to suck it up and hope that those people reading my newsletters find the content to be interesting enough that they'll overlook those things and show me a little grace.
Here's the thing, Tina, I'm sitting here feeling all guilty for not offering, but I'm just not a typo girl. Like, I don't catch typos. Like, I would totally help you with content or whatever, but I have my own issues with. I have to have other people like I have some friends who will take a glance. Don't you know some people who would just be willing to take a glance? Like I know a couple of Facebook grammar Nazis, they call them. They call themselves that, and they will just like rip something to shreds if it's missing a comma or whatever. And so I say, can you glance at this and just make sure? Because I fiddle and twist around with stuff like what kinds of fun things to put in my newsletter. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Do you think you've got a buddy who'd be willing to glance at least your preview?
The only problem with that is I'm often trying to get it done at the last minute. Like I want to get them out at Saturdays at 1 and Saturday at 12:30 and like tweaking the final stuff.
Yeah.
And so then I would have to wait for
that time management component. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Jennifer says her oldest daughter checks hers. Homeschooling for the win.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie says, always read out loud when you're proofreading. I don't know much, but that is the only way I catch my mistakes. That is why I caught my errors in And the Mom Ran Away with the Moon. I was actually doing the audiobook narration for it when I caught a couple of things. Very small things, like they had gone up north and I said on the way down at one point. You know what I mean? Stuff that maybe people wouldn't even catch, but it just bugged me that it wasn't right. So I had to go in and it wasn't hard because it was a one-word fix. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now I know, like, I'm so impressed that I can do this stuff, like that I could fix that in my formatted document. Do you know what I mean, Tina? I learned a whole lot on this. And I know Cindy, who was in the chat earlier, was having a really hard time also getting her newsletter kind of figured out. And it's so nice to be on the other end of that and now just actually sending the newsletters and feeling like things are a little more routinized, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so does anybody in the chat have a question about newsletters? And Tina, what do you have to say about perfection being the enemy of done?
Well, if you wait for it to be perfect, it'll never be done.
That's true.
So you might as well just hit that button. And, you know, another interesting thing that I learned that is sort of connected to newsletters is that, you know, when you want people to go download your book and you give them a link to Amazon to go do that, you got to make sure that you're giving them the short link so that you take off all that stuff that comes after the title. I think it's ISBN, the title, ISBN number. But all that stuff is tracking information. That Amazon can track where you posted that link. So let's say, for instance, that you posted it in Facebook and people go to Amazon from that link and download your book. Suddenly Amazon has this track of your Facebook. And now they can take down any reviews of people that are your friends on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, and they will do that. If they find a connection between you, a personal connection between you and someone who's reviewed your book, they'll take it down.
Yeah, I had heard of that happening to people before. So, you know, you got to tell your friends and family not to say, like, this is my cousin and I thought her book was amazing, because Amazon will remove that review.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, on the one hand, like, I get it. If someone knows the person, chances are they're blowing smoke or something like that. But on the other hand, come on. You know what I mean? Who are you going to ask to read your book if not the people that you already know? So I get it from both sides, but it's just still, it's a fact that it can happen.
Because I would really love to put my daughter's reaction on Amazon, because she basically texted me at some weird hour telling me that I had wrecked her whole life because she was reading my book and she was bawling and she didn't think she could finish it because she could see the parts of myself that I put in to my character. Yeah. She's my daughter, so she's recognized that, and so that's why she was bawling. So, but I was like, oh, that's a great review, but I can never put it in there.
Well, you could maybe have her write stuff and use it in ad copy, like make an ad that has her review quote in it, right? You know, And then you can still get that in front of potential readers' eyes without it being an official Amazon review.
Yeah, I've thought about that.
All right. Well, Tina, any more insights about newsletters? I mean, I think we pretty much covered what's new, what's next. Use the screenshot on Instagram. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a spread the manure around kind of a suggestion right there. So once again, if you do some social media, you should use it everywhere you have a social media account. Put it on your Twitter, put it on your blog. I am preaching to myself because I seem to only care about Facebook and Twitter in spurts when I even care about them. But you're supposed to be putting everything you make on every one of your social media profiles, because then you are just building and building and building over time.
Yep.
So Cindy says that's awesome.
Frustrated with that because when I make a band, well, like I make a picture for Twitter, it's not the right aspect ratio for Instagram. So I like to use Hootsuite and do it all at once, but you can't because the size picture you need for Twitter is different than Instagram. So I get a little frustrated.
I know, it's frustrating because it's very much a building blocks, layer upon layer, long game kind of a situation. And it's unfortunate that you can't, plant a seed of corn one day and the next day go and take that ear off the branch. And it's just really frustrating. And you got to be consistent over time, all the stuff that I'm terrible at. But anything that I do, I feel like is moving me forward. So I try not to beat myself up on the days that I do nothing and be really happy with myself when I do something, because you're only improving things by taking a step forward. It's never hurting anything to try to improve what you've got going on, right?
Right.
You really only fail if you stop trying.
That's true. And, I just did this Amazon ads course with Brian Cohen, and he has this little silly puppet of a lemur, and he talks about the Zen lemur and how you have to be patient. Because it's with anything, the ads, the reviews, the newsletters, over time, those things are going to build up and the numbers are going to build, and then you'll have what your goal, it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to be patient and stick with it and be consistent and pray for me, because those are not my
I know, right?
natural traits or whatever.
Well, NaNoWriMo is coming up, and it's a perfect opportunity to start some really great writing habits. So anybody who is stumbling across this and is thinking to yourself, well, I sure would like to write more. Well, pick November as a month when you kind of get into writing shape. Let's say if you were thinking that you were going to run a marathon, you'd start running maybe a half a mile every morning. Because you're crazy, I would never run anywhere. Like Tina said, unless something very frightening was chasing me, I would not run anywhere. So
that's the part that something frightening was chasing me, where I decided laying down and dying was not an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's scary.
So we are heading into November, which is National Novel Writing Month, and our podcast, yay, is writing a book that is going to help you well on the way to a writing habit. How, Tina? How are we going to help our writers develop a writing habit?
With the workbook we wrote called 30 Days to a Writing Sprint Habit, or I just butchered that title.
I know, I always butcher the title.
What's that?
I always butcher the title. I just try not to say the title. That's why I toss to you.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. I'll let you butcher it.
Give me rope to hang myself. Anyway, there's 30 days worth of writing sprints in the workbook. There's room to write in it. There's lined pages that you can write out your writing sprints by hand if you want to. Some of those writing sprints are sprints that we did on the podcast, and we have included our writing sprints, me, Jamie, Jen, and Rhonda's writing sprints on some of them. So you can, and we did not edit them. We took a picture of these sprints and we put them in there with the red squiggly lines and the blue lines and any other lines that Word or Google Docs decided to put in there to tell us that we had messed up something. So all our grammar mistakes, all our spelling mistakes, everything is still there. We did not edit it at all.
Right, because we want to be totally vulnerable with you guys and let you know that we're not perfect people. We don't spit out perfect prose the first time we go to write something, so you shouldn't feel pressure to be perfect either. So I just wanted to let you all know that our official launch of the book is this Friday on the Christian Indie Writers podcast. We air, what time? 10 o'clock Eastern. Right, Tina, on Fridays?
Mm-hmm. 10 to
So if
11 Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube.
Yes, if you found us here, you probably will get an alert that the other thing happens. But
Yeah,
you want to
I
be
think
looking
most
for
of
us.
our chatters are on YouTube.
Ah,
The fun place to be on Friday mornings is on YouTube with all the chatters.
I know I can't even look over there. They just get me all engrossed, and then I get distracted from the podcast. So they're really great over there.
Yeah, and when I'm doing this, when I'm hosting and I'm trying to watch I'm not Jennifer. I can't juggle the chat and putting it on the screen.
Oh, she's amazing.
and
I know. We
So-
miss her.
We'll be happy when Jennifer comes back.
Yeah, although I'll miss doing newsletter chat with you, but I think that we'll probably be swapping around, taking turns.
Probably.
All right, so we want to know, how are you guys doing building your newsletter? I mean, how is it going getting subscribers? Do you guys have any tips or tricks for us? I personally still have a first goal. I'd love to get 100 subscribers. If you are listening and you're not one of my subscribers and you want to see what I'm doing, writingshorts.net is my website newsletter. Writing, like you're writing something, a story, shorts.net. You can sign up for my newsletter. I have articles, puzzles, and free short stories. You get a free copy of my ebook, And the Mom Ran Away with the Moon, just for becoming a Writing Shorts subscriber. Also, you get an introductory issue that has an additional free short story in it. So sign up now. How was that, Tina?
Great. And if you head on over to ChristinaCatane.com, sign up for my newsletter, you could get a free ebook of Lost in the Land of the Midnight Sun. And for you, those of you like Rhonda who want to have a paper book in your hand, you're going to have to wait till November 14th, which also happens to be my birthday. And that's the launch of my book. Oh my gosh, my battery is running low, so
I know,
I'm
but-
going to have to
All right, we're going to sign off
plug in my
then.
computer.
All right, well, we'll sign off real quick, Tina. Say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye, folks at home. See you soon. Oh, wait, Cindy. Cindy says she has an onboarding sequence that only adds people who actually open her emails to a regular list. It's running about a quarter right now. Well, Cindy, I appreciate that, because when you start having to pay for subscribers, you don't want to pay for dead weight. I totally respect that. Cindy also wrote an excellent article. You could check it out. I shared it on our Facebook page. It's about newsletters and her opinions about what makes a quality newsletter. I think it's worth reading, and I know she'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are about what she wrote.
All right.
All right. I
Okay,
think
bye,
so.
everybody.
I'm glad you did. Your battery didn't die, Tina.
Yeah, I got it plugged in while you were talking.
All my talking is good for something. Bye for now.
Bye.
It's time for Newsletter Chat, where Jen and Jamie chat about newsletters. Newsletter Chat with Jamie and Jen.
And Tina.